You're listening to the Modern Mainframe, BMC's Intelligent C Optimization and Transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues in the mainframe and how BMC AMI solutions can help you make change your competitive advantage.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Modern Mainframe. I'm Matt Dallaire. Today we have a bit of an all-star lineup. Joining me to discuss their predictions of what's to come for the mainframe in 2024 are BMC Senior Vice President of Mainframe, John McKenny, Vice President of Intelligent C Strategy, April Hickel, and Vice President of Research and Development, David Jeffries. John, April, Dave, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Matt. Great to be here.
Thanks for the invite.
Great to be here, Matt.
So without further ado, we'll get out the crystal ball and take a look ahead. AI is certainly a hot topic these days, and it's been a big disruptor for 2023. John, how big of an impact do you see AI having on the mainframe in 2024, and where do you see the biggest area of impact for AI?
Well, Matt, I think that AI, and especially generative AI, right, I think that is just going to continue to grow and explode, and I think that's across every facet of business and consumer markets. We think about the mainframe. I think the mainframe is absolutely going to be part of that journey. I think within the mainframe space, I think we'll see use cases develop that help development teams become more productive. I think there's a number of interesting applications around that. I think we'll see it begin to enter into the areas of helping operations and other infrastructure teams, security. I think we'll see a number of those use cases come to light over the next 12 months, and I think we're just scratching the surface. It's going to be exciting to watch.
With the mass exodus of retiring developers now behind us and mainframe customers still facing a skills gap on the mainframe, Dave, what are your thoughts on how companies are going to upskill more developers to work on mainframe applications? And what role will Gen AI play in this?
Oh, thanks, Matt. I'm not sure the mass exodus has kind of really finished yet. I think there's lots of stuff and people to still kind of change their roles on the platform. But I think this brings up an absolutely critical topic: is how do we deal with the ever-growing skills challenge on this platform? And I think there's two fundamental ways that we've probably all known there were two fundamental ways. One way was just a little bit easier, and one way wasn't necessarily as easy or ready for prime time. Now, let me explain. I think the first way has always been the thought of, let me just try and replace the skills that I've lost. Let me try and replace the 30-plus year skills that I lost out of an individual, and how can I do that? And that's probably in the traditional way that we've approached it. That is less and less doable these days. Not necessarily just because maybe the availability of those individuals aren't there, but I don't think that the workforce of this day and age really wants to kind of replace somebody in a certain role and then going to be there for 20, 30 years. We know the dynamics, and we know probably, we all have kids, etc., and we know how our kids probably have an attention span much shorter than we might have had at that time. And so, I think we could perpetuate, let's just hire in to replace those roles, but I think that's just kicking the can down the road. I think there is a different way of looking at this, and I think, if we can make this platform just as any other platform, from the outside, it looks like any other platform. It has the same tools. It has the same implementations, operational capability, etc. But we all know it's a little bit special. I think if we can modernize the platform to take advantage of those tools, Ansibles and Pythons, etc., we know that is probably the right way to look at addressing the skills gaps. Don't address just the gap. Look at operating the mainframe in a different way. And John mentioned the generative AI kind of journey. I think generative AI helps us in a couple of ways in this space. Obviously, it does help us from almost being able to capture those skills of the people who are leaving the platform for pastures new and their next chapters in their life. But there is so much information that we have around our systems, whether it's in Confluence, whether it's in wikis, whatever it is. Generative AI is fantastic at being able to troll that information and those data sets and come up with very creative and pretty accurate answers. And I think we can start to think of Gen AI being a co-pilot to us. I know various companies have used the co-pilot phraseology and even branding, wingman, whatever we want to call it. But I certainly think capturing that SME skill through and presenting it and generating it through in different forms through generative AI is absolutely key. And I think Gen AI will also help us in the space of being able to actually do some of the modernization. We have a lot of recs on the platform. We have a lot of C-lists on the platform. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we were able to, through various language converters and scripting converters, move that over to Python? I would certainly love to see that. That would make us, just like any other platform, the kids coming out of college, wherever they're coming from, they know that technology and they can be productive essentially day one. So I think that the world's changing. We know that. But now's the time we embrace it. Now's the time we modernize the platform and we simplify the platform and we go full bore on that.
And that's a really interesting take about the kind of capturing the institutional knowledge, the experience gained over the years, the little things that maybe a mentor might not even think of to pass along. AI can help pass that along.
Absolutely, Matt. It can consume, many different. It's multimedia, consumable, video, audio, Teams presentations, etc., transcribed. That's the power of generative AI, is pulling all those different kind of data sources and data sets together to come up with some really compelling insights and conclusions.
So as you mentioned, it will also help with automation and with speeding the software development and delivery processes. And speaking of automation and software development, April, we've heard a lot about database as code this year. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how DevOps will help bridge the gap between DBAs and developers.
Well, I'd start with the fact that we've seen over the past couple of years tremendous business outcomes from mainframe organizations who have adopted DevOps. So we've seen developer productivity double for some of those clients. We've seen customers who have done automation of their release processes go from releasing once a year to once a month. So tremendous forward movement in using DevOps practices and tooling to innovate faster on the mainframe. So I think a lot of organizations are asking, what's next? What more can we do? And if you step back and reflect on the key tenets of Agile, we know that it's to break down silo, to take out friction, to integrate, to automate. So I predict that we'll see in 2024 customers really doubling down on what else can they integrate and automate. And I think in the mainframe world, one of those key areas that customers will need to focus on is the database, and how do you make it easier for developers to go through the process of having automating database changes as part of their releasing or software development lifecycle. And I think the other thing that we will see is SQL assurance. So SQL validation, optimization, making sure that there are the guardrails in place to make sure that SQL meets the standards of the organization early in that life cycle. And this bringing that database, change management, database SQL assurance down into those pipelines is going to just result in better collaboration between developers and those parts of the organization that are managing these very large, highly optimized databases. And all of this is for the business outcome and goal of expediting innovation, bringing to market new capabilities for their customers.
Yeah, it's great to see how organizations have adopted DevOps practices on the mainframe, started using agile practices on the mainframe, and creating an enterprise-wide DevOps pipeline. So how are customers rallying around the idea of democratizing mainframe data? What ways are mainframe teams going to align everyone around making mainframe data available as a source of business insights?
So My second prediction related to data on the mainframe is, customers, pretty much all customers have a data lake initiative. And the purpose of that is to really take the information that they have and create new business insights. So I'll give you an example. So I have car insurance through a large company, and they've given me a little widget that goes in my car, connects over Wi-Fi, and it keeps track of all of my driving habits for good or for bad. My speed, how often I'm driving, the distance I'm going, and then this factors in to how my insurance policy is managed and how much I pay for my car insurance. And so customers are really thinking about how do we take all of this data, and unfortunately mainframe data sometimes has been locked away in data stored on tape, virtual tape libraries, and customers have worked around that. They've said, okay, well, we're going to do a process to export and transform and load this data, but because of that sort of the nature of that process, we're going to just take a little bit of data, and they're really losing out on the opportunity to take all of that data onto a storage platform and store it in a format that's highly optimized for an analytics engine. So if you want to move that to the cloud and take advantage of one of the cloud-based analytics programs, or if you want to move it into your own private cloud and take advantage of some of the data lake business analysis you're doing, all of those are unlocked for you now. That technology is available. And my second data prediction is that in 2024, we are going to see a massive transformation of data movement for mainframe data into these analytics ready storage platforms, cloud, private, and public.
And really, that's kind of catching up with the times. It's surprising that in 2024, so many businesses are still using tape and virtual tape to store data. But there are emerging use cases around AI ops and even security measures that are changing how enterprises see storage as part of an enterprise-wide resilience and compliance enforcing strategy. On that note, John, we've seen the EU adopt DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, to codify and somewhat force organizations to be better about guarding against cyber threats. How do you think mainframe-dependent organizations will address this new regulatory requirement?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think it's a little bit like April was saying. I think that just organizations overall are going to continue to look at how they better protect their systems and their data from a variety of cyber threats. I think one prediction we all can safely make is that cyber threats will increase next year. That is a given. You know what? The cyber attackers will become better than they are this year, right? So that's something that is always going to increase. So the DORA Act and other regulations out there are in place to help remind organizations that they need to be vigilant and protect themselves against those cyber threats. And one of the areas in the DORA regulation specifically is to make sure that organizations can recover that data in the event of an attack. So I think, again, building on what April said, I think that organizations will look increasingly at hybrid storage strategies for addressing immutable backup copies, as an example, right? So no longer should mainframe organizations rely on another mainframe in a remote location or a virtual tape library connected to a mainframe in a remote location as the destination for those alternative backups. I think they'll be able to use increasingly cloud object storage, and to Dave's earlier point around simplification, you know what? They can choose the same cloud object storage that they're using for their non-mainframe environment. Imagine that. As Dave said, treat the mainframe the same way the rest of the organization and the rest of the IT infrastructure is treated. So I think we'll definitely see clients adopting hybrid cloud strategies, looking at how they can use cloud object storage to address the need for immutable copies to protect against cyber attacks like the DORA Act requires organizations to do.
So one theme that seems to be emerging from all this and in looking at the year 2023 has been in terms of financial and political uncertainty that software delivery teams are going to need to have some way to stay focused and prioritize to find the balance between driving innovation, reducing technical debt, and generating maximum value from existing solutions, tools, frameworks, etc. Dave, I heard you say that 2024 is the year we're actually doing it versus just talking about it. To that end, what's your prediction for enterprise software delivery teams that have been focusing on mainframe modernization journeys? What's coming next year?
I think 2024 becomes the time where everything starts to fit and fall into place. In terms about doing versus kind of just talking about it, there are so many people these days now who have proved out the modernization journey, that it works, that it can be done, it can be built, it can be simplified. I think 2024 will be the year where a lot more people kind of get on board with that. And that, by its very kind of essence, will allow the rest of the business to start to look at and explore new opportunities. We're all about growth. Every organization and company in the world is really about growth. But how can they get to it? And sometimes we've been kind of hindered by a lot of the things that we do today that we do in a certain way. We need to ruthlessly prioritize. I think the modernization journey will allow us and force us to prioritize what it is we do so that we can get to the new applications, the new insights. We can start to really leverage AI on the platform. It's been there. AI has been on the platform really since the dawn of the Z16 with the Telum processor, and the mainframe has been back. Now we start to exploit it. I think we'll start to see companies really implement centers of competence around AI and the mainframe, utilization of AI. We'll start to see, we've talked about generative AI enough, but we'll start to see competencies around there. You'll start to see people trust AI, because I think that is critical as we move forward, is being able to trust the conclusions that are kind of created out of the deep analysis of machine data and various other analytic data. So I think we'll start to see companies want to expand, leverage, know that modernization journey is doable, and they'll jump on it and they'll start to, I think, embrace this new journey around AI and around new insights versus necessarily be embraced by it or fear potentially the impact of what of AI could potentially do. So governance will be driven around that. Governance around AI will be important. I think we'll start to embrace that and we'll start to really understand that. Look, let's face it, this year I think has been the year where even the operating system that we work on, ZOS, fundamental to the success of the mainframe, is embracing AI internally. It's the first operating system that is AI infused, right? When could we ever say that on this platform? So I think, 2024 will be the year when we start to see people doing versus debating, discussing. It'll be the year of real transition and transformation on our platform.
And a lot of what we talked about today, from innovation and data storage to AI, really reflects and is also reflected in the 2023 BMC mainframe survey, that there's this outlook where the mainframe will continue to be a platform for growth and integration with new technologies. John, do you have any closing thoughts on that or on anything else?
Yeah, I think just building on what we've talked about here today, I would say a few things. So one, Dave, April, and our teams, are blessed with the fact that we get to work with so many customers around the world. And I think we've seen, a shift, right? I'd say 3-4 years ago, there was a small handful of customers that were truly modernizing their practices, their process, their tooling, so that they could achieve the benefits that we've been talking about. So as I look to 2024, I think it will be the year of mainframe modernization momentum. we've been fortunate to work with many wonderful customers, and we've seen that momentum building last year. We've just worked with a number of clients who've gone through some really good momentum building migrations to more modern tooling and processing. I think that's really going to take off in 2024. So when we're sitting here chatting next year and looking back, I think we'll be able to reference an increasing number of customers who've modernized their development processes, their operational infrastructures, their security, their storage platforms. And I think we'll be able to trace it to a lot of what we talked about here today around the infusing of AI and generative AI to enable that. So it's going to be exciting. And I think all of that is going to lead to continued growth of the mainframe platform as it continues to provide tremendous value to so many organizations around the world.
April, anything to add?
Taking it, one click lower than what John said and just building on this idea that the mainframe modernization is accelerating, it's here. That really is translating into some really tangible use cases around how do you use predictive insight about managing your performance on your mainframe, detecting earlier that there are problems, automating resolution. We categorize that all as AI ops. We've talked on this podcast already about a couple of the big use cases in DevOps, but there's the application of AI to help you analyze your large programs and make suggestions, recommendations, and help you refactor those. And then thirdly, it's about connecting to the cloud. So as John said, modernization is here. We see people having great results. And for us, I think that really all centers around, can you innovate faster? Is your mainframe resilient? And are you taking advantage of AI? And are you securing and protecting your system and data? And are you taking advantage of all of the capabilities that are available to you in the cloud, whether it's for analytics on that data, whether it's for protection of that data, or just storage of that data? So that's what I would say, Matt.
And if I may throw in my own musings here, I was just thinking how in the 1950s, you had this kind of dawn of the computing age. You had these mainframe computers, and holy cow, it's a game changer. We're really moving into a new era. And here we are 7 decades later, and the mainframe is still around and it's still adapting to the latest technology, which is great to see. Dave, I'll leave the final word to you.
I'm just picking up on something that April said about innovation and innovation faster. I don't think anybody modernizes anything just for the sake of it. You don't say, hey, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'm going to modernize something. Why? I don't really know. Seems like a good idea. We modernize to enable ourselves to go do something and to accelerate somewhere, to build growth, to build those new applications, to innovate, to use our technology that we're all proficient on in a new and better way. And I think fundamentally, I'm so excited to see what will happen next year as people really see the proof points of just what can happen if you take attention to simplify, how you can use that as a way to really kind of kickstart and launch a whole new set of use cases and applications for what we do really, really well on this platform.
Well, this has been a very interesting and insightful look ahead, a very positive and exciting look ahead. Again, John, April, Dave, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to gather here and discuss these predictions.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. It was a lot of fun.
And as always, thank you to our listeners. Be sure to check the show notes for links to further information. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on The Modern Mainframe.
You're listening to The Modern Mainframe, BMC's Intelligent C Optimization and Transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues in the mainframe and how BMC AMI solutions can help you make change your competitive advantage.